Good morning, everybody. My name is Michael Stadelmeyer. I am a staffer for Congresswoman Tenney here in upstate New York, NY24. We will get started in just a minute. I know that there are some people who are still trying to get into the Zoom, so we'll start roughly at 10. So give it just one more minute. Thank you. Okay, thank you everybody for participating in our monthly webinar series. My name is Michael Stadelmeyer. I am a staffer for Congresswoman Claudia Tenney here in Victor, New York. Today we're going to go over the federal grant process. Again, this webinar will be recorded so that it can go up on Congresswoman's official website at tenney.house.gov. This is going to be a generalized overview of the federal grant process. It's going to have some guidelines for searching for grants, some best tips and practices, and also how the Congresswoman's office can help out with the grant process. Again, this will be recorded. If anybody has questions, please feel free to utilize the Q&A function at the bottom of the Zoom screens. And we can get to that after the presentation. So I will get started in just a second. So to begin, what entities are eligible for federal grants? Again, this is a broad overview of it. So there are other entities that might fall under the eligibility for federal grants, but this is generally what eligibility means. So usually it's state, county, municipalities, and or state and local governments in general. Those are your local town boards, your villages, your county municipalities, and your state entities as well. Local education agencies, commonly referred to as LEAs, state education, individual schools under public school systems are also able to be eligible for funding. Again, it's a case-by-case basis. Certain colleges and universities also can get grant funding, whether it be for research or for public funding. Again, it's fairly broad for what the eligibility would be. Hospitals, health centers, public health centers, and health systems. A lot of it is research-based or community health-related grants. Within the small business development, there is the SBA that does development grants or development loans, but also typically R&D, research type of grants, things like that. Nonprofits such as food banks, community clinics, libraries, museums, other types of 501c3s also would be eligible, but generally those are what you see as food banks, libraries, etc. So again, to generalize, what agencies fund? These are just a list of some various agencies within the federal government. There are many more agencies and departments that have their own funds, but these are kind of what we see in general. So under USDA, their mission is supporting American agriculture, research, and rural development. The rural development is fairly broad. It can be something for community development or building development, but typically they utilize different eligibility requirements on what is rural and what isn't. Department of Energy, DOE, They do a lot of grants for energy research, next generation battery, and fuel cell technology, among others. So Department of Health and Human Services, they have multiple grants for child welfare, mental health, and combating opioid abuse, among many other grant programs. Department of Education, their primary focus is elementary and secondary education, college completion, and apprenticeship programs. The NIH does a lot of medical research as well. They also have been getting into TBI's research as of late. And then ultimately, they also have a lot to do with Alzheimer's disease research grants. Under Department of Justice, you see a lot of different programs among safety. The COPS program is a very well-known within law enforcement, school safety under DOJ grants, and then state and local law enforcement grants you'll see. FEMA, they have a focus of the Assistance for Firefighters grant, which is a yearly grant to help fire departments for various funding. They also do local hazard mitigation funds among different programs as well. So what you need to know as a potential applicant. One, the federal grant process is a very competitive grant process. Applicants can face a multi-step application to compete for grants. By competitive grant process, it also means that it isn't just a given, you apply and you are given a grant. You are competing for grants among other applicants through each agency. Now, the Community Project Funding Initiative through Congress is a proprietary budgetary spending through each congressional member, both House and Senate, and that goes through a separate appropriations process. So that is outside of the grant process itself. To begin, there's no grant season. Grants are offered throughout the year. Deadlines widely vary, but are typically between 30 days to 90 days when it comes to the initial point of application opening to closing. Now, some other things that you are definitely going to need to know if you are a first-time applicant or a nonprofit startup. The first thing that you're going to want to look for is to obtain or make sure that you have an updated EIN number, an employee identification number from the IRS. Most of the time, if you have your nonprofit set up, you already have this number. If you have a state or local agency, you have a different number. So typically everybody should have those, but it's a good practice to make sure that you have it and that there's no issue through the IRS. If you are starting up a nonprofit, then that's going to be your first step. And it can take somewhere around 5 weeks to accomplish this through the IRS. The next thing that you're going to want to look to do is register for a SAMS account for an award. So that's going to be a unique entity ID, UEI number. You have to renew those every 12 months. So it's a good practice that if you do have this, that you check to see when it expires and make sure that you would be eligible if you were to get a grant. That is something very unique to if you receive a federal grant. Most of the time you have to have that SAMS account and number. A very good practice to have if you're looking for funding is to register with grants.gov and because that's also going to be how you upload and submit applications for grant fundings most of the time. The register link is at the top of the banner. If you go to grants.gov, you must designate an authorized organization representative, AOR, who has the authority to upload grants on behalf of your organization. Grants.gov also has a way of sending out new grant proposals, applications, and or sending out deadline information, but also it's a really great way of searching for grants. The next one that you're going to want to do, and again, this is dependent on which organization fits for you, is register with Just Grants. The Department of Justice has their own separate portal for their own grants. You can still see it in grants.gov, but typically you have to go through the Justice Department to obtain applications and submit applications. You're also going to want to, again, dependent on your organization, register with ERA Commons. Now, that is a separate one. Every single program director within your organization or your authorized organization representative is going to need that ERA Commons ID for those particular grants. Again, it's just like the Department of Justice, where you are going to submit grants separately into their portal. Now, going into how to identify grants, there are plenty of ways to be going about looking for federal grants or private grants, etc. The best would be going to the grant source itself, going and searching keywords, awardees, topic areas. Again, grants.gov, you can look through that as well. You'll be able to see the forecasts and notice of funding announcements. That is what the correct terminology is for when a grant application opens. Those are going to be your best tools because you're able to see exactly what grants have been funded in the past and when they typically open and close in the past as well. Grants, again, have their own separate cycles, grants by grant basis. Some are annual, some are biannual, some can even be 3 to 5 year grants. So when you're searching for grants, you want to really take a look at the history of a grant itself and see when the opening, when the closing, when the actual funding gets dispersed. All of that you can find publicly available, and grants.gov is going to be your best site for that. During the search process, you're going to want to keep in mind several different things. First and foremost, everybody's going to tell you you need to check the eligibility. So on grants.gov, it will show you exactly who is eligible to apply for these grants, whether it be only for municipalities or only for nonprofits or some mixture of the two. That is going to be the key into not making sure that you're not wasting your time going through an application process itself. And then finding out that you're not eligible. You're going to want to look and see how competitive this grant is, meaning how many awardees are there? Is there a floor to the award, a monetary floor, or a monetary ceiling? You're going to want to take a look at how many are out there and just how competitive it is. If you're looking for different funding, that's going to be something really key to seeing how much effort you really have to place into putting a really good grant together. You're going to want to look at, and I mentioned this before, look at previous awards and previous proposals. Who has funded in the past and how much. You're going to want to connect with them or see exactly like what their proposal was. They might have a statement on how the funding is going to be used. All of those things are really come in handy. You're also going to want to take a look at the alignment with your mission and plans. You want to see how much your costs are going to be with your project and how much funds would be available for these grants. You're going to want to take a look at the needs of the organization. You're going to want to make sure that if there's a ceiling or a floor on a grant, that you're going to be able to fit within that funding there. There are many other aspects of a grant, but those are just the generalized process of what you want to look for when you start the search and application process. Now, how Congresswoman Tenney's office can be supportive of your grant process. First and foremost, we are happy to write letters of support, commonly referred to as LOSs, for applications. We want to be making sure that the taxpayers' money are being put to good use. So we want to make sure that we're supporting all of the programs that we possibly can. We can also help search for federal grants. We, as Congresswoman Tenney's staff, can look and search for different grants and try to understand what it is that you're trying to fund, but also give you some possible options that you can further look into for applications. If you're having an issue with your EINs through IRS, or technical issues kind of registering with the site, getting kind of being delayed, or if there's a problem that the policies really need to be worked on, we're happy to help. Our caseworkers will happily help out with any of those type of issues. And then we can provide as much info on the grants as possible. We have the same access that you will to all of the public information on grants. And so we're happy to provide where to look, how to look, and different types of things like that. I will say that congressional offices can't advise you on which grants to apply for, nor can they apply for applications on your behalf. That is something that congressional offices can't do. So we are happy to provide as much information as humanly possible, but we're not able to act as guidance for which ones to apply for and why that should fit. Again, we're happy to write the letters of support, do searches, or problem solve for you all. We also have on the Congresswoman's official website at tenney.house.gov some more information on the grant services itself. We have a whole bunch of different guidelines as well to add on to this PowerPoint. There's also some like USA.gov, grant and loan pages, and also there is information from CRS, or known as the Congressional Research Service. They also have a bunch of information on grants that can be very helpful. If you go over to tenney.house.gov and you hover over services, you can look at the grant application, grant applicants dropdown. I will say that is going to be updated in the very near future. We're going to have a better portal system so that you can contact our office and give us some more specifics on which grants you are trying to find. And so that will help our team here be able to facilitate finding that grant that might work for you, or giving you a list of different options. So be on the lookout for that updated function on the website, and we'll make an announcement when that happens. Again, feel free to contact us with any questions on that. We're happy to provide searches for you. We would prefer as much detail as humanly possible, and we usually prefer the details in writing or the statements or documents. You can utilize the function of contact us and it will get right to us, no problem. Or feel free to call one of our offices. We have an office in Lockport, Oswego, Victor. And then we also have a satellite in Watertown, New York. So feel free to contact us at any point in time. On grant info and more upcoming webinars, things like that, feel free to subscribe to Claudia's newsletter that comes out every single Saturday. It has a lot of information, such as when we do these webinars, what they're about, but also on different things that Claudia is working on in the House of Representatives. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to get back into this function here. And I am going to just see if there is anything in the Q&A function. So feel free to ask anything for the next couple minutes. I do see one in here. And the question is there a number or email for the Watertown office? That is actually connected to our Oswego office. So feel free to call our Oswego office if you're in the Watertown area. That number is connected to our Watertown. So that is going to be area code 315-236-7088. So I'll hold off just a couple more minutes. If there are any other questions, feel free. So I'm going to mute myself and we'll just kind of let that roll in for the next minute or so. So I'm not seeing any other questions so far, but again, if you have any questions, feel free to utilize the contact us form on Claudia's website, or feel free to call one of our offices. We try to do these every single month to provide some information. And again, our grants are going to be updating very soon so that you can get a little bit better information from us. We're always striving to do better when it comes to the constituent services. I know the Congresswoman, she strives to always make sure that we're listening and doing as best as we can for all of our organizations. So with that being said, thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate your time. Again, this webinar has been recorded, so once it gets downloaded, we're going to upload it to the Congresswoman's official website under her webinar section. With that, thank you very much, everybody. Have a good rest of the day.